Hello, everybody. Welcome to an episode list. Just as we're starting, Jordan, one of our two special guests, is joining us. Danny Drip Marino, how you doing today, bud?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Probably better days with how the Dolphins game went. And I don't know if you saw, we put it on YouTube since we're up 1K followers. I did a spicy ramen challenge today. The video is out there. It was rather painful, not gonna lie, but it was good content.
Yeah. Well, I mean, congrats on the 1K, and I mean, I don't know if I can think of a better way to celebrate that.
Yeah. Jordan is just mad that he was not there because I filmed it. The main reason I didn't do it live is because since it's 7 o'clock, I'm like, I want to be able to sleep, and that'll not.
But Brett, you said originally that when we reached 1K followers, you were going to do it live on an episode. And then you put out this video that all of a sudden shows you doing it. And who knows if it was real? Who knows if it was spicy? I
sent you the pic. You can see it's spicy.
Your bathroom will know this. But I don't know. There was a lot behind it. It came up too quickly, and I'm not one to shout fake news, but I mean, I didn't see it happen.
Yeah, I told you. Buy me some Pepto-Bismol, and I'll go ahead and do it again for you.
Okay, we'll arrange that.
Yeah, but yeah, Danny, King of Phinland's going to be joining us soon as well. For those who don't know, this is going to be a therapy session. Speak of the devil. Oh, there we go. Thanks for joining us, Kings of Phinland. How you doing?
Doing good, man. How y'all doing?
We just started our therapy session, so
yep. Since
Thursday
was rough. I think we can all agree on that. That was not what we were expecting. Our producer, Mr. S, wants us to briefly touch on the Tua topic. Just to let you guys know, Jordan and I already agreed we're not going to speculate on retirement, nothing like that, because it's way too early and we're not doctors. So,
yeah.
But I will say this, and maybe this is naive on my part. The moment he got up and was walking off, and they're like, "Yeah, he looks fine," afterwards, and he was in good spirits, I'm just like, okay, he'll be back at some point. Just take your time. It sucks, but and like I said, this is probably a little naive on my part, but I'm like, we've been playing good at the beginning of both years McDaniel's been here. I just want to be playing good at the end of the year. So get him right. And if you guys are familiar with Chris Nowinski, concussion specialist, former wrestler.
Former WWE wrestler Chris Nowinski.
Yes. He's done a lot of work with concussions. 2 years ago, he was ready to throw Mike McDaniel in jail for Tua's concussion. This weekend, he's like, yeah, he should miss 1 or 2 games. But if Chris Nowinski's not complaining about it, I'm not going to worry about it too much. So I'm curious to see what you guys think.
Yeah, I mean, I can at least speak on it. Unfortunate setting. I was in Chicago and somehow managed to find myself in a Bills bar, the only one that I could have kind of just singled myself out there.
Did you know beforehand you were going to a Bills bar, or you ended up at a bar and it happened to be a Bills bar?
I was anything that would show the game. I was nervous. I didn't know if they'd have it on with it being on Amazon Prime. Saw it from outside, walked in, immediately heard Bills fans just going nuts, and I knew I was kind of in trouble from there, but just kind of camped out in there. But no, I mean, obviously seeing it, the whole bar reacted kind of as you would expect.
Were you by yourself at the Bills bar?
It kind of felt like I was singled out there anyways, but
no, were you the only one in your party? Was it just
No, I wasn't. But it was a group of work friends, so
yeah, that'd have been lonely.
Yeah, I mean, only Dolphins fans, so again, felt like I was on an island anyways. Yeah, I mean, when we saw him get up, I mean, I don't want to downplay the injury. Obviously, a little bit better than the last time. Had to kind of field questions from kind of everyone shooting me texts after that. It just felt like one of those things. And again, we've seen it before, which again, I don't want to downplay it, but it feels like one of those things where 2-3 weeks, it seems like that might be the estimated return on that. And it's just kind of now just moving forward and almost just holding down the fort until he gets back.
What about you, King?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just scary more than anything, especially to see him go into the fencing position like that. I think that's what freaks people out the most, and like where the screams of retirement and all that stuff come from. But yeah, I mean, this is the NFL, and unfortunately, concussions are not atypical. Like it happens. It's his third of his career. Um, Kenny Pickett 2 years ago had 3 concussions in one season, and you didn't hear a single thing about it. I think it's because Tua is already probably the most polarizing player in the NFL, and on top of that, 2 of the major concussions, well, actually, all 3 were on prime time because it was Bengals Christmas game and then this one. So when you take such a polarizing figure and then you add that it's the only game on, so everybody's watching it just kind of sticks in your brain more, I think. And like the severity of going into the fencing position. So I think that's where the outcries of retirement and stuff like that come. But truthfully, like, you know, Tua looks at this. He's a competitor, and he plans on playing this game until he, retires, and at least 10 more years, I would think. And so to give up on it this early, I just don't. I was not surprised to see him come back and immediately say like, "I'm not retiring. I have no plans of retiring." I was honestly kind of like surprised at how rock bottom Dolphins Twitter hit. Like, don't get me wrong, it was one of the worst games I've ever watched as far as like the expectations of this team, how they performed on top of, and then on top of Tua getting concussed. Like, I mean, it was horrible, but at the same time, like, you regroup, it is what it is, and you move on. Like, I was surprised at how quickly everyone was like, I mean, people were tweeting out Cam Ward season and just like,
Yeah.
like except like it's over, like it was just immediately over like that. That kind of surprised me, that everyone just assumed that Tua was done, the season's done, everything's over.
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head with the conversation turned dark very quickly.
Yeah,
And I think that any conversation outside of what we hear from Tua is just conversation. It's just fan speak. I think that people got overly emotional for a couple of reasons. Number one, there was so much hype behind this game. And even before Tua got hurt, when we were in the span of getting blown out, there was already a lot of negativity and dramatics and already get rid of McDaniel and all this. Yeah, we'll talk about the play calling at some point in this episode. But from a simply Tua perspective, unless you are not only a doctor, but a doctor who has physically examined Tua, because you mentioned Kenny Pickett, and every person and every concussion is different. And none of us can talk about the way it impacts the brain other than the doctors who have specifically examined Tua and Tua. Not even his family. That even they're speculating because they're not him and they don't have his brain. And unless they're qualified and have looked at the scans, then it's all just speculation. I think we need to talk about A, the way Tua was playing before the injury, okay, and B, the play calling and the offensive line and different aspects of the game. Because to me, if I'm the defense, then I'm pissed off because they were put in a lot of terrible situations, and it looks like they gave up 31 points. When for a second straight week, they didn't give up a single point in the second half. So that's one. Number two, if I'm the running backs who are taking a beating and are playing well in this offense and being put in horrible situations, like McDaniel calling a stretch toss on second down when it was clear when he took Tyreek Hill off the field and ran the play clock down in the second quarter. Those are the things the Dolphins fans should be talking about. But instead, it's almost like in a relationship when you're in a fight and you're lashing out at the complete wrong thing that you shouldn't be lashing out at. And the, Tua concussions is easier conversation and easier to look at than us realizing we have some serious issues with this football team, whether Tua's healthy or whether Tua's not healthy.
Yep. Yeah. And real quick, I did see Thomas Whitaker. I did see your comment earlier. Let me rephrase what I'm saying. What I was saying is what I meant to say is the first 2 years we have been playing well to start the season and somewhat in the middle of the season. But as the season goes on with McDaniels, the injuries hit and we just start playing worse. Well, I guess you can just say that's Dolphin football in general.
Yeah.
But to go along with Tua, we got to go right into the offensive line. I know there's other stuff to talk about. I think we're all tired of talking about the offensive line. We've been talking about the offensive line since Ryan Tannehill got drafted over a decade ago. So it has been an issue. Now, the only thing I'll say about Tua's concussion, I've seen this a lot on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I don't like people coming out and blaming the offensive line for Tua's concussion. It was a freak play. Can't blame them for that. I'm not going to say the offensive line played well. I will say I don't think they were that bad in the first half, aside from the 4th and 1 that Robert Jones just got beat right away. We gave up the ball again. But the thing I will always say, and Jordan's going to make fun of me for saying this because I always bring it up, but watching Michigan football, they're my college team.
11 minutes and 14 seconds before Brett mentioned Michigan.
Yeah.
That's better than the Jim Nagy episode where you took 29 seconds or whatever it was.
True. But Michigan will say, we're going to run the ball. We're going to run the ball. We're going to run the ball. Oh, you stopped us. We're going to keep running the ball. When we run the ball, and the stats back this up, we're actually pretty effective at it. I think the biggest issue we run into with Mike McDaniel is he doesn't commit to the run. And even against the Bills, we saw it. We were running right down the field. Second half, now, of course, the offensive line is going to struggle when you get Kendall Lamb, who they treated like a starter. I think he only played in the preseason. I think he only had like 11 snaps the preseason at left tackle. And then you have Lester Cotton, who didn't take a single snap at left guard in the preseason. You have those two right beside each other. They immediately give up a sack. They get beat right away. It was a stunt. So let me just say that it's a stunt. So the communication was poor. And yes, Austin Jackson had a bad game, but he's not a great pass blocker. He's a great run blocker. And we immediately start going into pass, and defensive line can just pin their ears back and attack. So yes, the offensive line isn't good, but the best way to help an offensive line is to run the ball. And I don't think McDaniel consistently does that enough, and it makes the offensive line look worse than it already is. So, Danny, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I think has been a consistent theme over the last 3 years is this kind of goes back to like closing games out at the end, is running the ball when the other team knows you're going to run the ball and doing it effectively. I think those are opportunities where we do often go away from it. And I think that's kind of the frustrating piece, is because we know we can run the ball, and when we do it, it's been relatively effective. And like you said, offensive line issues aren't going to help that. Tua goes out. There's no threat. They're going to stack the box. I get it. That's not kind of the issues we're talking about. I think just in general, starting off a game, establishing the run, at least presenting it as a threat, I think that's something that, I mean, we're going to have to see going forward. If we want to win these games, if Skylar's in there and at least add it as a threat. But if we're going away from it that early, I don't think it's something that's really helping us in any way.
Yeah, and I think as you get into this like run the ball versus passing the ball conversation, you have to acknowledge kind of the shift that's happening right now in the NFL. I don't know if you saw the tweet circulating about touchdown passes through week 2, but there's been, still Monday Night Football to play, but there's been 66 passing touchdowns in the NFL through week 2. Last year, it was like 84, and then the last 4 years before that, it was in the hundreds.
Yeah.
So, we kind of entered this passing era in the late 2010s, early 2020s, where, I mean, teams were just getting lit up. That all these new concepts, these creative coaches between like Shanahan's and McVay's and all, just so much innovation that teams had to adjust. And so linebackers went from used to being the Brian Urlacher, the Zach Thomas types of the big, beefy, run-stopping linebackers to smaller guys who could run around and, run with a receiver and, cover tight ends very well. And like you kind of switch to these small linebackers, and then in the same sense where your defensive line was kind of built to just clog everything up, you kind of went to these light, quick, fast edge rushers. And so as defenses have transitioned to be, okay, we're going to sell everything out to stop the pass, offenses are now seeing that and kind of having to adjust and saying, all right, we're going to run the ball. I mean, the running game is more up right now than it has been in 10 years. Like the Texans have CJ Stroud, one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. They've got Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz. I mean, every weapon you could want in the passing game. In week 1, they gave Joe Mixon 30 carries. Why? Because it won them the football game. Like, it's just kind of the shift that's happening in the NFL right now. I like McDaniel a lot. I think he's very committed to his scheme, and he's so confident that it'll work that he doesn't really like to adjust out of what he thinks is like the perfect play. And he's talked about it. Like, he gets kind of obsessed with the perfect play, and sometimes like the perfect play that will really work out well in the perfect scenario isn't necessarily the right call. There's better calls there. And so I think he kind of gets too caught up in what his scheme is and can produce, instead of just kind of assessing where the situation is at in the game and calling plays accordingly.
Well, his scheme right now looks a little bit like a high school offense, and it does. It's a lot of east to west. It's a lot of trickery. It's a lot of motion, and the motion to this point at least has been really predictable. I mean, and the play I talked about a little bit earlier, they take Tyreek Hill off the field and bring in Julian Hill, Dubose, and Alec Ingold all onto the field at the same time, and then motion a guy in a direction and then toss the ball in that same direction. I mean, and that's not just one example. That's happening throughout the game. So from a McDaniel scheme standpoint, it's a lot of just teams have stopped worrying about all that motion and are just essentially keeping the Dolphins in front of them. And the Dolphins are either throwing the ball short or they're throwing the ball deep, and they're not utilizing the middle of the field whatsoever. So that's one issue. But back to your other point, which was exactly correct. I was on a Bills podcast last week and talked about how football is kind of transitioning back. And it's how the Super Bowl had been won, even throughout those passing eras, which was the more physical team is going to win the Super Bowl. Then it turned into the more physical team is going to win playoff games. And now it's the more physical team is going to win regular season games. You touched on the Texans running the ball 30 times. You can watch any NFL game right now, and the team that is more physical, the team that is striking at the point of attack, is usually the team that's going to win the game. Okay, and a lot of this motion, a lot of this spread has just kind of – teams have ignored it and said, our job is just to beat the shit out of the other team. And they're okay doing that. They're okay lining up and doing that. And that's how you combat. And there's a difference between, let's say, Shanahan's scheme. Look what happened to them against Minnesota this week. You look at McVay, even his scheme doesn't always work. Okay? McDaniel right now through 2 games has been cute. And the Dolphins don't have the offensive line to be physical at the point of attack, which if you're physical at the point of attack, that's when this offense is almost unstoppable. But when you can't win at the point of attack, when you're not making your blocks, when you have the worst offensive line pass grade that your team has had in 3 seasons, this offense is going to look like it's looking right now. You almost have to simplify things and run a basic, get the ball out of either Skylar or Huntley or whoever's hand very quickly, get the ball to Waddle, get the ball to Tyreek, read what the defense is doing, stop trying to do what you want to do against whatever they run, look at what they're running against us, and draw something up to just simply beat the defense. It doesn't need to look pretty. Joe Mixon, I'm sure, I didn't watch that game, I'm sure it was a ton of just inside zone. I'm sure it was a ton of 1 gap or 2 gap. That's it. And I'm sure it wasn't any – it doesn't need to look good. It just needs to go 4 yards forward every time. And I think that's what McDaniel's missing. And I don't think we have the pieces up front to run this offense he wants to run right now.
To the counterpoint for that, I will say this, and the film does kind of back it up. When we do run, Austin Jackson and Eichenberg are almost winning every play. They're not they're not getting beat. The right side of the line is doing their job in the running game. There's holes. Big issue right now is the running backs' vision has been inconsistent, and I will say that for both games there have been holes open that have just been missed. But the other issue with it, and Eric Smith, who was on our show a couple weeks ago, he does he does some good breakdowns on the offensive line on YouTube. He pointed this out. The big issue is the tight ends aren't winning. Julian Hill and Durham Smythe are losing their blocks right away, and
Durham Smythe's got to go.
He does have to go.
It's enough. He's been probably the worst player on the team through 2 weeks.
I would say Robert Jones has been, but Durham Smythe is probably number 2. All due respect to him, but yeah, he's here to block, and he's not blocking. And then Julian Hill, I'm sorry, he has to come down with the what was it, the play before to his concussion. He has to come down with that if he's going to be a starting tight end in the league. And yes, Puerto Rican heat lifer, we are talking about the offensive line. The point I would make and have made is the issue isn't that the offensive line. Well, the main issue isn't just that the offensive line is bad. It's that the
yes, they are. They are. The offensive line is bad.
I said it's not the
exclamation point if you want. The offensive line sucks, and there's no other explanation to it.
Well, no. What I'm saying is the other thing is the play calling isn't helping. Because the other thing that's showing up is you go around the NFL. All of Shanahan's disciples, they're built around the play action, using tight ends in the offense. We are the lone exception to that. Jordan, I've been begging for a tight end in the draft for 3 years, and I'm going to do it again this year because this year has Colston Loveland. But that's a big missing piece. We've been using Jonnu Smith as a glorified wide receiver. He is not being used in line, and I think that's an issue. But if you look at the film, there's nothing in the middle of the field, and so far the Jaguars and Bills have been daring us to go to the middle of the field, and we're not doing it. Now, Grant DeBow and Robbie Chosen are a big reason for that, but
I don't understand. And maybe one of the 2 other guys on here can tell me, what is it about Tyreek Hill that has Mike McDaniel pulling him off the field every 3rd or 4th play? It feels like there are so many snaps throughout the game that Tyreek Hill is off the field, more so than I remember with just about any star player we've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, he routinely, last year too, like 50% of the snaps is all he gets. And
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, for $30 million a year, like, you got to be out there more. And I don't know what, no one's going to know what goes into that decision unless you're in the room. I don't know if it's fresh legs all the time. I get it, he's not the biggest guy, but he's a competent blocker. Like, he's out there pancaking D linemen, and he's willing and he's competent. So I don't think it's like a blocking issue. I don't know. There's really not a good answer for it.
No, it feels like you're almost tipping your hand regardless. Him on the field at least can add a threat that he's going to do something. I don't care if it's blocking. I don't care if it's a short crosser over the middle. It's something that warrants attention. And taking him off the field just kind of tips your hand. We're running this in some way. I know we did it in some cases. I'm not going to be the first one to say I don't know how often it was happening so far this year, but Waddle and Tyreek off the field at the same time, like that, you're just kind of conceding and saying we're going to run the ball, and that's about it. So I think that's one of the bigger issues. Like, I don't care if he's doing something on 50% of the snaps, as long as he's in, you're not kind of tipping your hand in that way, and there's some other threat other than just in the backfield.
Yep.
And if you want to keep talking offense, sorry, Brett, you're a little blurry there, so
I'll fix that.
I ignored you. If you take all of that out of consideration and you want to have a conversation about Tua, I talked about, again, while I was on that Bills podcast last week, about how there's always one play a game that you can look to in a Tua game, in what people call a bad Tua game. And there's always one play where it's not just a bad play. It's a Will Levis type bad play. It's a horrendous, like, what was he thinking? What was he looking at type play? And that interception was it. That pick six that he threw on third down where he couldn't even get the ball out of bounds. Now, take that play out of the game. Throws it on the ground, we punt. Defense didn't give up a point the rest of the half, so let's say the defense gets one stop, okay? We get the ball back, we're driving downfield. In that drive where Tua gets hurt, we're only down 24-10. We score, it's a one-score game. So the NFL is a possession game, it's a numbers game. We're not that far off. We just can't, and by we, I mean Tua, can't make the plays that are going to absolutely kill us. And as our producer sitting in the back said, he had two massive defensive linemen in his face, just throw it at the ground. How many times do you see Tua just throw the ball at the ground? That's it. If it's not there, whatever. I don't remember more than a handful of times where he's really tried to force it out of bounds like that. He wasn't throwing it at a guy. He was throwing it out of bounds. And I think we just got to stop making the plays as a team that shoot ourselves in the foot and absolutely kill us.
Yeah, and I mean, it was third down. So, like, you take intentional grounding, who cares? You know?
You're punting anyways.
But, yeah, no, I think it's a really good point about the defense. I agree completely with you that I think the defense had kind of a good game, you know?
Yeah.
Like, people are going to see the 31 points and hate on it, and I'm not going to sit here and say they were outstanding, but not only did they not give up any points in the second half, they only gave up one touchdown. They only gave up one scoring drive that started on the Bills' side of the field. Like every single time that the Bills scored, except for one touchdown drive, the Bills started in Dolphins territory.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, you know, I mean, you think about it. First drive, interception. They're right there. They score a touchdown. We hold them to fourth down. They go for it and they score a touchdown. You know, tough break. Next drive, I think we scored then, and then we made them punt, and then we get it back. We throw an interception. They get the ball right there, but you stop them to a field goal. And then they had their one touchdown drive, and then you give them where we went for it, like right around like our own 48-yard line. They get the ball, they score, and then they come out of half, and we throw the pick six. And it's like, you look at that. I mean, Josh Allen had 130 yards passing. James Cook, I know it felt like he ran all over us. He had 78 yards rushing. Like, the defense kind of held their own. The frustrating thing is when you dig into the numbers, the Dolphins outgained the Bills. I think we had 350 yards of offense to their, like, 270. Which, holding a team to 270 yards of offense is top five in the. I mean, average would be top five, top three in the league. Yep. We were 7 of 15 on third down. They were 3 of 9. But we both had 10 drives. So, like, you look at it. If you just look at that in a vacuum, this at minimum is a close game. But we had 7 penalties. They had 1. We had 3 turnovers. They had none. And it goes exactly to what you said, Jordan. We're not playing bad football consistently. We're playing pretty good football until we just shoot ourselves in the foot. And that's what it is. It's highs and lows, and they got to figure out how to consistently be right here.
Yeah. The thing I would say, 2 weeks in a row, we look like a team that did not play their starters in the preseason. And the other thing to go around, watching yesterday, there is a lot of sloppy football still going around. Yes. So the silver lining is it's not just us. But Danny, I'm going to throw this to you real quick because a theory I had, and Jordan and I complained about the other day. Well, I complained to Jordan about it, and he agreed with me. It feels like because we've been hit with the injuries the last 2 years so hard, we're overcompensating for injury, like, and just sitting people early. But now it looks like Tyreek doesn't look right. Now, part of that's probably because of what happened before week 1. Mostert, I thought, looked really sluggish and slow on during the first week. Ramsey kind of does on defense, but he's missed practice. So it just feels like, to me, the team just is coming out and they just feel unprepared. So I don't know if you see the same thing, or if it's just this is just one of those things we just have to deal with because it's the NFL now with the lighter practices and the shorter preseason.
Yeah, see, I struggle with this because I know when we talked about it earlier, we talked about I don't care if we play well right now. I want to play well in December, in January. And there's a little bit of give and take when it comes to not going with the starters in the preseason in hopes of having them healthy in that time frame. So I typically lean on limited snaps. Now I understand that we kind of completely forfeited the preseason with our starters. And I think essentially the Jaguars game was then our first preseason game. So that one, and you kind of saw it in the first half. I mean, second half came out and we played, I thought, pretty decent football. Obviously not up to our standards, but decent enough, good enough to win a game. I do feel like if there would have been an opportunity for defensive starters to really get that action, this would have been the year to do it, given the new defensive scheme. And I think, again, you had mentioned Ramsey hadn't practiced really up until the season. New defensive scheme, which kind of going back to that, I thought things have been going pretty well on defense. Mm-hmm. And like you guys are talking about, tough to expect a lot when they're taking the ball on our side of the field and driving down. So I think things have been going well on defense, but I do think kind of we've seen kind of those couple hiccups mid-game where maybe a couple extra reps in live action in the preseason could have benefited us on that side of things. And I think it's pretty obvious that there are a lot of growing pains on this offense, and we've seen it. And it's hard not to point to the preseason lack of snaps there, especially with the offensive line. I mean, I hate to keep going back to this, but again, I feel like that's a perfect spot to at least just build some sort of chemistry with an offensive scheme. And we're working with a new center that got no snaps up until week one. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't want to make excuses because I feel like I've made excuses, like you said, ever since Tannehill. So it's pretty frustrating in that way. But again, these just seem like prime opportunities to get those snaps and get those reps. And we're getting them in the season when opportunity presented itself in the preseason to do.
I'm going to loop back really quick to a conversation we had before, just to close it. We had 77 total offensive snaps. Tyreek Hill played 53 of the 77 snaps. There were 45 drop back plays. Tyreek Hill was on the field for 30 of those 45. There were 32 rushing attempts. Tyreek Hill was on the field for 22 of those 32. So 53 out of 77, 30 out of 45, and 22 out of 32 for Tyreek Hill.
It's honestly better splits than I thought. I don't think it's good enough, but I think it was better than I thought it was, honestly.
Jalen Waddle played 3 more snaps than him.
Yeah, I think the issue is we look at the first interception that King brought up earlier. The 3 wide receivers were Grant DeBoe, Robbie Chosen, and Braxton Berrios, and 2 of those 3 guys were not with the team 2 weeks ago, and that's an issue. And for the second interception, again, we went to Robbie Chosen. Now, did he run the wrong route? Was it him just falling? Was it miscommunication? It's honestly probably all 3 of them, if we're being honest. But it just feels like it's the same thing we said last year, the final week. Last play of the game, interception to Chase Claypool on a decisive play. Why are we going to Chase Claypool? Same thing. Why are we going to Grant Dubois, whatever his name is? Why are we going to Robbie Chosen? That's the issue. And yes, we have had injuries. I believe we have the PFF grades too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, what's funny is most of the offensive line didn't grade poorly.
What are you talking about? Austin Jackson had a 27 rating. He was the worst player on the field.
He was. I said most. Liam Eichenberg, Taron Armstead, who got hurt, Kendall Lamb, surprisingly, and Aaron Brewer all graded above average.
So what you're saying is that Liam Eichenberg was the piece of shit with the least amount of flies on it.
Yes.
And I'm PFF. It's a good tool. It's a comparison. But
yes, it's a tool, but it's not everything.
it's not my
Yeah, to your point, Jordan, also, who are the other, besides Tua and Skylar Thompson, who are the other worst players? Alec Ingold, who I think has been fairly poor to start the year. Durham Smythe, who we said was poor. Robert Jones. You got the 2 quarterbacks in, which is understandable. But I'm actually surprised Julian Hill was rated so high. But 2 of the guys that we rely on most to help the offensive line have been very bad this year. And one, Alec Ingold, someone we have as a captain on the team. So the point I was making is more, it's not just, to go back to that, it's not just the offensive line. And I think sometimes.
How would we all agree that it's not just the offensive line, but it's the overarching lack of physicality on the team? Is that?
Yeah, and I think
Yes and no.
I think the defense has done a good job to try to change that, and I feel like they've had a lot of reps where they have kind of been you heard all off season about being the bully, that the defense kind of took on, and David Long's in there hitting, like they got some people that are hitting. Calais Campbell has been. I mean, I knew he was going to be solid, but he's been a very good surprise. Like, I think the defense has done a pretty good job of physicality, but yeah, the offense, absolutely. Now, I don't know about Alec Ingold. I truthfully, I haven't gone back and watched the tape like I like to for these past 2 games. I feel like Alec Ingold's been okay. I like Alec Ingold. I think he's done a solid job, but I'm not. Like I said, I haven't been in the film booth just watching every blocking rep. But maybe the 4th and 1, the 3rd and 1 carries are maybe blinding me. But but
I will say this: the 3rd and 1 that he got stopped was not his fault. We did a shift, and it brought the linebacker into the play. Jordan, I would agree. We need to get more physical. I think. And like I said, I'll reference Eric again with his videos. He did a breakdown last year, and the film supported this last year. When Miami tries to do too much motion in the run game or go outside too much, we're not good at it. Mm-hmm. When we improve, you get into I formation and just run right up the middle, and we do good. So I think there is I do think there's a physicality issue. I think the bigger issue is we want to do plays that rely, and Ingold does get a bit of a benefit of the doubt too, because he's been good for us before. So I'm not going to harp on him too much, but you're expecting Julian Hill and Durham Smythe to do a lot more than they are, and they're just not doing it. Like, so many of the plays is them lead blockers, them sealing off the edge, and they're not winning those reps, and that's just as big of an issue. And Robert Jones, like I said, we've spent a year just ripping on Ike, and Robert Jones is the one who's getting beat almost every play.
You're not wrong.
So that's the thing. But yeah, I do agree the defense. I just think with any defensive issue we have right now is just
the easy defensive issue is that it's the 2nd consecutive week, and Kader Kohou's at the bottom of the rankings on defense.
Yeah.
He's as bad defensively right now as Durham Smythe is offensively.
He is, and that's disappointing. So, but I was also going to say, I think there's a lot of issues with reps too, because Holland was hurt all preseason. David Long's been good, but I think the 2 biggest plays I think the defense have given up in the run game. Bigsby week 1, and then he can comment on this afterwards, and then the touchdown to Cook. He's just taken the wrong hole twice, and it's killed us. Mm-hmm. So there's the gap assignment.
Yeah, I think he's in a similar manner. I think he was great for us last year, and I'll still give him the benefit of the doubt. I'll go back to the fact new defensive scheme, poor decisions, a couple hiccups here and there, but overall, it's very few issues I'm currently seeing with the defense. I think I've been pretty impressed with kind of how things have been going to start.
Yeah, and going back, I want to circle back on something too, where you talked about kind of the motion in the offense. I think another thing that it does is it makes you pretty predictable. I think that's one thing that the offense has really fallen into is when you run that motion that they're coming across, and then you snap it, you get a lot. You can time the snap so much easier. He's running this way, and especially majority of Mike McDaniel motion is, like Jordan said earlier, or maybe it was Brett, to kind of distract you. And teams have just decided to, I don't care about your distraction. I'm focused on right here. And so one, I'm not distracted, but two, it's giving me, okay, I know your count now. Whereas soon as he gets to this point, I'm coming and it's like, it's so funny. This is actually what happened with that 3rd and 1 that got stopped on Alec Ingold. We line up, and I stood up to the TV and I looked at my wife and I said, "This guy is going to go in motion, and we are going to hand it to Alec Ingold. I guarantee it." Boom, happens. We get stuff, and I looked at her and I was like, "If I can from my couch tell you exactly what's going to happen, that is a problem." And it just gets so predictable and I think that's what it is. I think Mike McDaniel's gimmick, if you will, has kind of ran out, and he's got a lot of good foundation. Like there's a lot of good principles in there, but he's got to pivot, and this, in my opinion, is where you can really see what kind of coach we have in Mike McDaniel. He took the league by storm. He was doing stuff that people had never seen before. It was fun. It worked, But now people have seen it for 2 years now. We're going on the 3rd year of people seeing it, and they figured it out. So now, when your initial thing, the thing that worked for you, doesn't work, let's see how you pivot. Let's see how you adjust. That's the sign of a good coach.
It almost reminds me, and hearing you talk and the words you're using, it's the same as the conversations we had going into the 2nd year of the Wildcat. Like, we had this nice gimmick. Okay, teams are starting to adjust. They know where the spots are to go. Okay, now what do you do once teams adjust? And to me, you just can't, like, the motion is really predictable, as you said, and you just have to find ways to either A, get back to basics, or B, zag off of the zig that you already did. You have to find the next evolution of whatever this is going to be, because now everybody's using motion and teams are not fooled by it anymore. So what's next? And like you said, and like any team, this isn't just a Mike McDaniel thing.
Yeah.
You can't stay stagnant and do the same things for a long time in this league. This isn't basketball. In basketball, Phil Jackson can run the triangle offense for 30 years, and as long as he has the same guys, he's going to do the same thing. In football, you have to constantly evolve and constantly change what you're doing in order to be successful.
And I don't think it's a bad thing to just say that out loud. I don't think it's a ton of changes that need to come into play here. You use what has worked over the last couple of years, you add a couple wrinkles into that, you start using those motions kind of more effectively. And I know we were talking about kind of the perfect play at that point. Sometimes you need to call it because it's the right time to call it, and use it more effectively as kind of more support and get back to kind of oversimplifying things. I feel like that definitely benefits us to kind of get back to the basics in that manner.
Yeah. It's something I said to our producer earlier. I was like, not that having no Tua is good for the Dolphins. It's not. But I was going to say, having to play Skyler in the regular season, I think, is almost good for Mike McDaniel.
No, it's not good for anybody.
It's not good for the team. I'm just saying it this way, is he's got to adjust, because Skyler cannot do what Tua does. And you can do so many things with Tua that it'll eventually click. Like, I know the offense has been struggling. I know the play calling's been bad. It'll eventually click as people get ready. You're going to have to adjust. This means using more tight ends. I actually think we're going to see probably Jonnu Smith become our leading receiver for the next couple weeks. And I think that overall will be good, because we need to establish someone in the middle of the field. I watched a couple different YouTube breakdowns of the offense the first 2 games. The teams are daring us to take the middle of the field, take the mid routes, and we're just not doing it. We don't have them. It's all deep. And it's not just all deep with Tyreek and Waddle. It's deep with Berrios. It's deep with Robbie Chosen. So it's an issue. We need to adjust it. And Mr. S said it. Tua presses, but Tua is also naturally aggressive. He's always going to go for that big play. So I think this is a good chance to adjust. Now, will it be 1 week and then we get Hundley in, or will Skyler surprise us? That is a different question.
I can't see Skyler surprising us. Now, I would love it, and I'd be the biggest fan of it, but I don't know.
No, I think, and the really, really frustrating thing about that is a year ago, 2 years ago, teams couldn't figure out how to get us out of the middle of the field. I mean, we lived there. And I mean, teams were putting more resources to the middle of the field than I've ever seen in a football game. I mean, they were playing too high on the hashes in a Tampa. I mean, just anything to keep them out of that middle of the field. And I tweeted this after the week one game, like in the middle of the week, I think Wednesday, and it was Tua's passing chart. And the past 2 years, where the Dolphins have really made their money is in the intermediate, the 10 to 20 yard range, where we're getting chunks, and so we're not getting into these third downs that we don't like to be in, and you're just finding those soft spots. And against the Jaguars week one, it was all or nothing, and like you guys have said, it was the same thing against the Bills, all or nothing. And it's like, I don't know where we decided to just abandon one of the foundational building blocks of what made this offense work. And I think that's something that Mike McDaniel's got to figure out too. And it all comes back to adjusting. I think he gets so caught up with whatever that game plan is, and he just won't deviate from it. Like, we ran that one play, the quick motion to Achan, where he spots up for the screen like 25 times against the Jaguars. And I mean, honestly, like, it worked like half the time. Now, I got tired of seeing it, but like, it worked half the time. We didn't run it once against the Bills. Like, you weren't sitting there going 3 and out, and just once, like, maybe I'll try it, like.
King, let me ask you this: do you think that Frank Smith should be calling plays? It's not going to happen. I'll say that. McDaniel's calling plays. There's a 0% chance it's going to happen.
Yeah, I do.
Should Frank Smith be calling plays?
I think so. And I mean, like, that was the whole thing on McDaniel when he first came here, is he didn't call the plays in San Francisco. And so everyone was wondering, like, how's his play calling going to be and everything. And truthfully, yeah, I think McDaniel is an elite, I mean, top tier play designer, game plan designer, like everything. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think he should be calling plays. I think that he's a poor clock manager at this stage in his coaching career. I think he frequently gets the plays in too late. We've been wasting timeouts. We got better at that last year. It looks like we've regressed this year. We've been wasting timeouts. I just don't think, when you talk about using everybody's strengths to the biggest of their to the most capability, yeah, I don't think that McDaniels is calling plays.
Now, I don't want to make this a against McDaniel thing.
Of course.
I'm of the belief that the head coach should be dealing with clock management, strategy, game planning, all that on both sides of the football. He should be in the middle, and your coordinators call plays. Your head coach should be telling both coordinators what they should be doing from a strategy standpoint and studying, and I'm sure McDaniel is, but I think he's just balancing too much, and it's just, look, it could work, and McDaniel could make it work, but I think it's most effective to have a guy on each side that's doing something, and your head coach dealing with everything in the middle.
Yep, and I'm gonna make Brett a little upset here, because I am actually an Ohio State fan.
Wow! Oh, here we go.
Bye, guys.
But I'm going to bring up my college team because it comes to a really fantastic point. Ryan Day has been calling plays for Ohio State, and it's been rough. I mean, it's been rough.
Now, I don't know Ohio State football. Did he just start calling plays, or he's always called plays since he's been there?
No. So this year
he called plays till, I thought it was last year.
No, he was gonna. So Brian Hartline became the offensive coordinator. Shout out Hartline, and was going to call plays until like 2 weeks before the season, and then Ryan Day was like, "Never mind, I'm calling plays." So, and I mean, it's truthfully like it's just the offense is broken down. You get too methodical. I mean, everything, right? And then finally, he decides, all right, we're gonna go get Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly's the new offensive coordinator at Ohio State. I'm going to let him call plays. And I mean, it's 2 weeks they've played nobodies, but the flow, everything. I mean, the the design's there, and I mean Chip Kelly. You can see a lot more shades of like his offense in it, but everything is just so much smoother. Ryan Day looks so much more relaxed on the sidelines. He's focused on the right things, and it's just done wonders on this offense. I would love to see McDaniel be able to let that go, step back, and you can still have influence, right? Like no one's saying that you're not in your OC's ear all the time saying like, "Hey, what do you think about this play here? Like I like that." Whatever. Like I think that's what Frank Smith does right now. Those roles just need to be reversed.
Yeah, and we'll move over to the other side of the screen in a second. I'll just touch on what Kadeem said at the bottom, which is the play calling issue with McDaniel, an opinion shared last season, or just based on the first 2 weeks. I want to be clear that this is something Brett and I have been talking about pretty much since episode 1 before last season. The issues of not getting plays on in time, the issues of clock management, those are things that we talked about going back to pre-last season. So this is not necessarily a new conversation.
Yeah. I also think, and Danny, let you get into this too. I think the worst, and we all agree, and Jordan, you can cover anybody who was at the game can cover their ears. The Titans game last year was the first one where I was just like, what are we doing? And then I thought the Chiefs game was probably the playoff game was just as bad, if not worse. So I had questions, and Jordan will back me up. I said when we did our predictions a couple weeks ago, I said for Miami to take the next level, we have to run the ball more. It's what this offense historically is built on: run and play action. I don't think we do it enough. So, but I will agree. King, you said this earlier. I would put Mike McDaniel in terms of play designer, top 3 in the NFL. I don't think that's a question. I think he calls games a little too emotionally at times. Mm-hmm. I definitely think last year he was a little too aware of stats because I think he was trying to get 2 of those consecutive touchdowns. He was definitely trying to get Tyreek to 2K.
Oh, and when that Waddle came back, it was like the ball. He was getting Waddle a touchdown. Like I remember one drive, it was the Giants game, and it was like 3 straight attempts to Waddle to get him a touchdown.
Yeah. So there are issues, but Danny, curious to see what you think. So I just think he needs to get more balanced, but he's also a young coach. And he's been for like 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to jump at the chance and say he needs to give it up at this moment. It's not going to happen until end of year type thing. I know it was something he said he kind of thought about this year, whether or not he would be giving it up. I think, obviously, again, sample size this year specific, 2 games in, I'm not ready to pull that trigger yet. But if we're still looking a couple weeks down the road and we're still saying the same thing of, man, we got Skylar behind center and we still refuse to run the ball, I think that might be the most kind of obvious change right there. Is Skylar's not a passing threat. Everyone knows we're going to run the ball, and if we're kind of overthinking is trying to catch teams off balance, that's just not playing to our strengths, and I think that just kind of exposes us in that way. So I typically lean in the way of separating the head coach and the play calling in that sense, but it almost does feel like he does kind of get attached to the plays that he really likes, that he designed, and he really likes those ones. And they work a lot of the time, but sometimes when we need him to work, he keeps going back to those ones. It's not always the same case.
Yeah.
So I have a question, and I'll ask this. We'll start with Danny, and then go to King, and then Brett. Let's say in a hypothetical universe that Skylar Thompson is starting from now until the bye. Okay, so he's starting weeks 3, 4, 5, and then our bye is week 6, so 3 games. What? And this has been since Thursday a nonstop negative, shitting on the Dolphins. Woe is me. The sky is falling, Chicken Little universe. So let's flip that. We'll finish. I want you guys to finish the sentence, starting with Danny. The Dolphins will be successful if
they commit to their strengths and run the damn ball.
Brett, the Dolphins will be successful over the next 3 weeks if
we become a typical Shanahan offense built around the run and the play action to the tight end.
King, the Dolphins will be successful over the next 3 weeks if
they don't beat themselves.
And I will say the Dolphins will be successful over the next 3 weeks if they have more turnovers than their opponents.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Now, Brett, I know you were saying something before I had some fun there.
Yep. We're talking about tight ends, and our producer's been talking about him all day. Is this someone you would look at claiming, Peyton Hendershot? I liked him in Indiana.
That's the kid from Indiana, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I would take a shot at him. I don't know what you guys think.
Is he better than either Tanner Connor or Hayden Rucci? Because anything right now is better than Durham Smythe. So I think that Durham Smythe needs to be replaced by somebody. It's a question of, are one of the guys that we have on the practice squad the answer, or is the answer a guy like Peyton?
So to me, Hayden Rucci is being groomed to be Alec Ingold's replacement. I don't view Rucci as a tight end. I view him as a fullback. Hendershot's more of, if you want to go for like on the team, he'd be more like a vice Jonnu Smith. Poor man's Jonnu Smith is what I would say.
Is there a role for another one of those on our team? I say, if you're going to put it like that, yes, because we're throwing passes to Julian Hill in the end zone twice in big spots. So by that token, yes, I'd be 100% willing to have him.
If he can block, that's all I care about. We got Jonnu to catch passes. I need someone that can win blocks off the edge.
But you say we have Jonnu to catch passes, but we're only really throwing him underneath stuff. We threw Julian Hill 2 really big passes in the end zone. And if we're taking Tyreek Hill off the field every 4th play, then you might need another tight end that can catch the ball, because right now you only have one.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the other problem and this is really evident in Thursday's game, watching Grant DeBose and Robbie Chosen, is that this offense is not easy to learn. And then on top of learning it, it is so timing based. And truthfully, that's what I think happened on the Robbie Chosen route, is that it was a depth thing. And I think Tua thought he was running to that depth, tried to anticipate the throw. By the time he gets to that spot and turns around, ball's going to be there. DB's not going to be there because he's still going to be running with Chosen, and it's there. Chosen ran it shorter than he thought. Now, whether Chosen ran the right depth and Tua overthrew, or Chosen ran the wrong depth, whatever it is, like I think it was I think Tua meant to throw it to that spot because he thought Chosen was going to be there. And Grant DeBose, timing, ball right there, you're not looking, And so that's the problem, I think, with just like bringing somebody in off the street, is I just don't think this is the type of offense where you can just pick up and go, in this passing offense especially. So I think the answer, I would tend more to say, don't look for people on the street to bring in, and try to keep your good players on the field more. Figure it out, And like Jalen Waddle, like I don't know who's pulling him out of the game. I don't know if they're wanting to be out. I don't know if it's Mike McDaniel trying to protect them. Tyreek Hill's making $30 million a year. Jalen Waddle just got paid an exorbitant amount of money. Like, we're trying to go win this thing. Like, sorry if you have to play 75% of the snaps, 80% of the snaps, 85% of the snaps. Like, especially when you're down out Odell Beckham Jr. and Malik Washington, like, you're so thin already. Like, guys just got to step up. And I have a feeling that's – I've just never met competitive football players that are really wanting to be taken out, So I don't think it's Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill saying, limit my snaps, I need out. Like, I think it's Mike McDaniel trying to be the player's coach and saying, let's get you guys rest, everything like that. But, like, sometimes you just got to let your guys go out there and do it, or you're not going to win.
Yeah,
I've said it before. Say if this was – it's early in the season, they didn't play much in the preseason, okay, then I'd get it. But it was the same last year in crunch time in big games. Yeah. Tyreek Hill was off the field last year in that play against Buffalo that Tua threw the ball to Chase Claypool.
Yep.
So it's one thing if it's just early in the season, but it's another thing if it's happening late in the year, which to this point it has.
Yeah. So as we reach the hour mark, I'm going to throw the round table. We're just going to go from my view, Danny, King, Jordan, and me. 3 games before the bye. We have Seahawks this weekend. Then we have, I believe, the Titans, and then the Patriots, then the bye. I'm just going to assume we don't have Tua until after the bye. So, Danny, we'll start with you. What is our record after going into the bye, or just these 3 games? And then is it going to be Skylar all the way, or do we bring Huntley in?
My head wants to say 1-2 these next 3 because I think you can outcoach Tennessee. I think anywhere between 1-2 and 2-1. I think those are realistic, and those kind of hold down the fort until you get Tua back. So I think that you lose all 3, things are looking real bad. But you just got to hold down the fort there. I will say, I think it's going to be Skylar all the way, but I would be interested to see if there are packages that bring Tyler Huntley into it. I think that could be some fun. I haven't seen a running quarterback in Miami my whole life, so let's have some fun.
Okay.
I think we go 1-2. I think you find a way to win one of the games. I will say, so I'm actually Nashville area. I went to the Titans game on Sunday to hate on the Jets, and the Titans defense is serious. Like Titans defense is for real, and people aren't really talking about it because they're 0-2, but they've given up like 2 offensive touchdowns all season. And if Will Levis wasn't like making the worst play possible both games, like, you know, like the games look a lot prettier for them. So I think that's going to be a tough game. Going to Seattle, that's not easy. And then we got New England, right? Or is it Indy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, New England. Yeah, and at New England, divisional game. Like it's going to be 3 tough games. I think they find a way to win one. Realistically, yeah, I think you're 2-3. I think the only way, truthfully, that we see Snoop is if Skylar gets hurt. I don't think they're pulling Skylar. McDaniel said it in his press conference today. Tyler Huntley is here to back up Skylar Thompson. He's not here to compete. I don't think it's open for discussion. I think if Snoop Huntley is in the game, it's because we're going 0-3 during that stretch, you know? So I think we're 1-2. I think Skylar looks about like he has, just not very good, but, you know, not like just a whole disaster where the offense is just kind of stagnant. So, yeah, I'm going to say 1-2. I truthfully have no idea which game we'll win. I think they'll all be ugly, and I think we'll ugly win one of them.
Yeah, I think we go 1-2. I think there's a chance we beat the Patriots. But we're always good for a former Dolphin player revenge game. And if it's going to be Jacoby Brissett against Skylar Thompson, that'll probably be the one that we get upset. But I definitely think we win the Tennessee game. And then I think we lose Seattle. I think that the starter – well, let me say it like this. The statement Tyler Huntley is here to back up Skylar Thompson is simply because Skylar Thompson is starting next Sunday 100%, and we have to give nothing but positive energy at Skylar Thompson going into that start. However, if Skylar Thompson stinks the bed and we get blown out and it doesn't look good, there might be a competition. You might hear, we'll evaluate that during the week going into next week. Mm-hmm. It's going to be, remember earlier, we said multiple times, this is a complicated offense to learn. So Tyler, we're going to see how much Tyler Huntley, whatever he's going by now, how much of the offense he can learn, how Skylar Thompson looks, and how the momentum of the team is, and do we need kind of that change of pace running quarterback to make things better. So this week will be very telling. I think we all just need to find a way to calm ourselves and just get back to enjoying football a little bit. It's tough. But there's nothing we can do about it. And unfortunately, none of us are inside that building, and none of us can really make a decision. So we just got to sit back and kind of see how the chips unfold.
Yeah.
So
And I think too, like, I said that I don't know if we see Snoop Huntley unless Skylar gets hurt. I'm never gonna wish injury on a player, but like, I think the chances. Listen, dude, I'm just saying, like, the likelihood of it is like I'm not gonna say that it's just unlikely. Like you think about injury, right? And generally, you say injury is just kind of unlikely. The offensive line is bad, and now we're down 2 starters on a bad offensive line. Now, I don't know what the timetables are for Armstead and Jones, but like you're rolling out Lester Cotton and Kendall Lamb on the same side, and you're telling me you feel good about your quarterback's health, like to a guy like Skylar who's battled injuries before, like very consistently. Obviously, not making a prediction here, not like wishing anything, but like I don't know that Skylar makes it 3 games.
I would, and not to kind of break up the roundtable thing, but if Skylar's going to be the one starting, or even Huntley, but if it's anybody but Tua, I'm okay giving Patrick Paul the starts.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point.
I think to go with that, I would think, heck, I would even consider moving Aaron Brewer to left guard and bringing Andrew Meyer in to be center.
Start moving it around. See what you got.
I would consider that if the only thing I wouldn't do, don't move Jackson or Eichenberg because they seem comfortable where they're at, but move the others around. I'm usually the optimistic one, so I will continue that trend and be optimistic. I say we're going to go 2-1. I think we're losing this weekend. I picked us to lose this game back in the spring. Just going into Seattle is going to be too tough. And Seattle, Jordan and I have talked about. I think they could be a dark horse for the Super Bowl. Jordan, I think you even had them in the Super Bowl.
Or did I picked them to be in the NFC Championship.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's going to be a tough game. Tennessee has a crazy defense, like you said. But like I think Brian Callahan's going to be a good coach, but I think you can already see he's sick of Will Levis, and Will Levis is just not able to process his offense. And it's got a lot of the same concepts we have. So I think that's going to hold him back. Maybe this is also slightly optimistic on my end, but once you get to week 4, what's going to happen? We're going to start River Craycraft, OBJ might be able to come off of IR at that point. So I'm thinking maybe Titans game, you get one, if not both. I do think we'll have Malik Tillman back in the next, maybe this weekend. And Malik Washington, thank you. And U.S. soccer on the brain right now. And we'll get Raheem Mostert back too. So I think we're going to get healthier. I think Mike McDaniel knows that he cannot run the Tua offense with Skylar. So I think we are going to go more to a heavy set, go more run, hopefully go more tight end, called tight end plays. But I think we're going to beat Tennessee, and I think we're going to beat New England. Plus, the other thing is I don't think the defense has played poorly at all. Well, overall, they need to get some consistency. I think they're going to be playing at a top level by the Titans game, and I think we're just going to grind out results and then hope to have Tua back after the bye.
For sure.
Yeah, we're gonna have to try to win like the Steelers win, like just ugly brawling type games. But I mean, we can do it. I will say, we talk about like Skylar versus Tyler Huntley. I would definitely rather see Tyler Huntley. Like, I know what Skylar Thompson looks like. I don't enjoy watching Skylar Thompson play. We might lose if Tyler Huntley plays, but I might have fun watching it, Like that's kind of how I felt about Fitzpatrick. Like Ryan Fitzpatrick, it wasn't always good, but it was always fun,
Mm-hmm.
Tyler
I'd
Huntley
love to go
can
get
do
Robert
those
Hunt
same
back to
vibes.
Dean, but I don't think we can afford him. No. All right, as we get to an hour, 10 minutes, does Jordan, what you got?
No, I don't know. I think we've said everything that needs to be said. We just gotta answer, and and we have to stay together and get through the next couple weeks and kind of let the people inside the building figure out what's going on, and get through the season. And once the season is either out of reach, we can start talking about the future. But while we have a chance here, the football season is short. It goes quick. So I think we should all try to see the positive in everything that's going on, and kind of enjoy this roller coaster that we're on.
I'll go the opposite way, Jordan, and I'll say this. Even though in the grand scheme of things it's short, football season actually feels very long, and it can change in this instant. See how we've gone in the past from the hottest team in the NFL to the coldest team to back. So no matter what, even if it looks bleak now, it doesn't matter how you're playing in September and October. It matters how you're playing in the winter. And we just got to get there and get to the dance. And hopefully that's with Tua. I think it will be with Tua. But when you have Uno at quarterback, anything can happen. It's just getting there. And hey, to be kind of lighthearted, hopefully this is Armstead's injury out of the way for this season, and we can have him healthy at the end of the year.
For sure.
And you made a really good point about Patrick Paul. I think that's a great idea of just going and starting him. And truthfully, I think Mike McDaniel, they asked him about it, and he was kind of just like, I don't like throwing players just into the fire like that, in a game that's kind of whatever. So it sounded almost like Patrick Paul is the guy there, but they just, Kendall Lamb's familiar. It's already kind of out of hand. We're not going to let this be your debut, just go be a stopgap Kendall Lamb. But I mean, Patrick Paul might get a start. I'd like to see it.
I'd for sure like to see it.
Yep. Danny, what you got?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to wake up every Sunday the next couple of weeks and still be overly optimistic. I'll forget everything that happened earlier in the week, and I'll still be riding with the Fins. So,
sure. By Sunday, I'm going to be fully convinced that we're winning this game. No doubt in my mind. 100%. I'm all in. By the time Sunday comes around, man, we are winning this football.
Sunday morning, we're going to wake up and go, Skylar Thompson had us in a playoff game in Buffalo once.
Yeah.
Lost by 3, man. Delay a game. Oh, it haunts me still.
Yeah. I mean, I'm already convinced that Michigan's going to lose to USC on Saturday, so I'm already –
Oh, here we go. An hour and 12 minutes in, 1,400 people listening, and Brett wants to finish the episode talking about Michigan.
No,
Brett,
I was going to finish.
Man.
I'm just going to say I'm the biggest Marshall fan this weekend.
Brett, you're the guy that said the Carolina Panthers were your sleeper team for this NFL season.
Sometimes I say stupid shit. Sometimes I do stupid shit. You can go on YouTube and watch. I just did a hot food challenge because we got 1,000 followers on Twitter now. So,
and I heard that if we get 2,000, I get to quiz you on how to spell and pronounce long NFL players' names.
I can't even say Jaguars. So, what do you think I'm going to say? The actual.
I did hear King say Jaguars earlier, and I didn't say anything. I looked at you to see if you were laughing. But I didn't. But you didn't.
Y'all say Jaguars?
Jaguars?
It's
Jaguar.
Yeah, I say
Jaguar if you're talking about the car.
Jaguars. No, it's the Jaguars.
But go, Danny, King. Obviously, thank you guys for giving us your time. We really appreciate it. Is there anything before we get off here that either of the two of you would like to plug? Or anything that you would like our people to know? We'll start with Danny.
I would say really appreciate you guys having me on here. I mean, obviously, Dolphins Twitter community, love chatting with everyone. So as much as possible as we get to connect, I love doing it. So again, really appreciate the time. And you guys are saying it all day. We'll stick together through kind of this roller coaster. We'll have some fun doing it. So again, appreciate the time.
Yeah, man. Same goes here. I mean, I hate that it has to be under these somber circumstances, but I had a blast with y'all. It was a lot of fun. Dolphins Twitter, just take it 1 week at a time. Take it 1 week at a time. Take it all in. It's going to be, I promise there's going to be higher highs and lower lows this season. So, just take it 1 week at a time. We're going to be all right.
Yes, we know we do, Kadeem.
And we will leave it at that. Brett, you want to close us out and tell Zach to auto filter in the music after?
Zach, I know you're working and you still haven't done it for last week's episode, and that's okay. We still love you, but once you get this, definitely hit that music so we can end on that great samba music we got.
All right, guys. Good night.
Good night.
See y'all.
I guess. See ya.